Thank you, Councillor Jackson. I appreciate that.
Can you speak a little louder, brother?
Thank you all for being here today. My name is Mike Robinson. I'm not a teacher or a paid spokesperson, and the outcome of the charter school experiment in Massachusetts has no bearing on my professional legacy or my personal financial condition. I do have deep professional experience identifying common sense metrics and conducting analysis to measure performance, including past contract work for the Massachusetts Executive Office of Education. I'm also the proud father of 3 children with a neurological disability called Tourette, 2 of whom attended a charter school from 2011 to 2015. As the co-chair for the all-volunteer board of directors for the Massachusetts chapter of the Tourette Association of America, I have often had exposure to the challenges many children with disabilities face in schools today. I admire children who face each day with courage and commitment, and education for every child is the key to having improved outcomes in adulthood. The children of this state, including those with disabilities, are our future citizens and leaders. Our state has a moral and practical obligation to provide children with disabilities equal access to education. It is not only the right thing to do, it is required by law. In general, Massachusetts is a wonderful place to attend school as a child with a disability, and our outcomes are among the greatest in the world. But not all districts are meeting the challenge, particularly many charter schools. That is why we are here today. At our charter school, my wife and I were often made aware of the strain our daughter placed on the school, and the administration often reminded us that our child was receiving more services than any other child. Our family's experience revealed an underbelly of special education in charter schools, which is common for many children who require special education. I saw tactics of exclusion, such as a teacher moving my son's desk 10 feet away from his peers, placing a circle of tape around his desk, marking where he was allowed to be. The school frequently recommended we return to our home district, repeatedly suggesting our daughter would be better off in a classroom of like peers, substantially separated. My children received out-of-school suspension for minor infractions. Since our experience, I have heard from other parents who have also seen the charter schools target, isolate, and eliminate children with special needs so that the school can appear stronger. And I've spoken with teachers currently working in charter schools who feel that they are simply not equipped to support students with disabilities in their classroom. I began to suspect that many charter schools are unprepared to support children with disabilities, that they punish enrolled children who are disabled, and this results in poorer student outcomes for students with disabilities. With this ballot question approaching, I began looking at state data to identify and understand how the industry measures charter school special education performance. I wanted to understand how widespread our charter school special education experience may be. I've relied on my data analysis skills to assess the state of special education in charter schools in Massachusetts. To do so, I used common sense metrics to measure charter school performance in several categories. For each of these, I used available data from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education provided via mass.gov. I must stress that most of this data is self-reported by the school districts themselves. I used no other source of data to conduct this analysis. For most, I do not use aggregates and averages, since each charter school is an independent entity and must be measured on its own. Therefore, I relied heavily on ranking districts based on their performance for each measure. I'd like to highlight several key findings from my research. First, charter schools have fewer special education teachers. Local public schools employ an average of 1 special education teacher for every 22 students with a disability. But charter schools employ an average of just 1 for every 36. At 19 charter schools, 25% of the total 74 report having 0 full-time employee equivalent special education teachers, compared to just 3% of Massachusetts traditional public school districts. Second highlight, charter schools have fewer students with disabilities. 16 of the 21 school districts with the lowest percentage of enrollment of students with disabilities are charter schools. And 10 of the 12 school districts with the highest special education attrition rate are charter schools. Finally, I wish to highlight discipline. Charter schools have higher discipline and suspension rates for students with disabilities. On average, Massachusetts charter schools discipline 14% of students with disabilities, compared with just 5% in public school districts. And 21 of the 23 school districts with the highest suspension rate for disabled students are charter schools. Folks, 91.3% of the districts with the highest suspension rate in Massachusetts are charter schools. The data strongly supports the assertion that many charter schools underserve children with disabilities. In addition, it corroborates the anecdotal evidence that many charter schools discipline and suspend disabled students at rates significantly higher than the overall population. And charter schools have a significantly higher attrition and dropout rate for children with disabilities. My wife and I oppose question 2 because the current charter model is harmful to students with disabilities. Before we lift the cap, policies must be established to ensure the charter schools are in compliance with special education requirements. Charter schools should not be expanded without first implementing both preventative and corrective controls and safeguards for these children. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education must establish improved monitoring and direct and frequent bidirectional communications with parents of students with disabilities to protect these students' rights and to prevent trauma. Such measures will ensure these students are afforded an equal opportunity in charter schools and will fulfill the promise to our children that they can function as independent adults and become the future leaders and citizens of our Commonwealth. Thank you all, and I'd like to ask Malika Williams, a Boston parent, to talk about her son's experiences in a charter school and at Boston Public Schools. Mike Robbins. I'm from Mansfield.
I mean, the research you did was with what company?
It was not with the company.
Oh, it's just your own.
I'm a disgruntled parent with grass.
Hey, I like it. I'm going to write that on the